Hi, I'm Mark, the Crazy-Eyed Gardener, and this is OGA, our gardening adventure. This is our first video, and I'll tell you a little bit about what we're going to be doing, our gardening adventure channel. And then I want to talk a little bit about what is a garden. Well, first of all, again, my name's Mark. Again, I'm the Crazy-Eyed Gardener because my right eye kind of does its own thing. And there's going to be times even in the video that you're going to look at me and go, what is he looking at? Don't worry. It's all right. Just use my left eye and you'll be all right. My wife also, Deanne, will be helping out at times because she likes to garden some as well. Well, we live in northern Utah, and you probably can't see behind me too much right now, but it's kind of a rainy, snowy day. Hopefully you see the one bird feeder out there. You may even see some birds because I have another bird feeder up above me as well. One of the things I do love, one of the reasons I'm going to be gardening, is to attract birds and other wildlife. That may even seem kind of funny, but we'll talk more about that in next episode. But today, I just wanted to talk a little bit about gardens, introduce ourselves, that type of thing. I've actually even got some notes. This is the first time for me kind of doing this type video, so I do have things written down to help me along the way, kind of to keep me on track. I hope that over time, I'll get a little bit better at this. Sometimes I'll have my glasses on and sometimes I won't. There are three things we really want to do in these videos. We're not doing this YouTube channel to make money. That's not it at all. I think primarily why we're doing it, and especially for me, my wife maybe a little bit, but especially for me, I have a teaching mentality. I've taught Sunday school. I've taught as a corporate trainer. I've taught my own teams when I manage teams, things like the 7 habits of highly effective people. And those are things that can help change lives of people. And that's how I want to come into what I'm doing here. I'm doing this channel to learn myself, right? To be able to post things, and then a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, come back and see what I was doing back then. So that's one piece. And that's part of the learning process. But if I come into this knowing that I'm going to share what I'm learning, knowing that I'm going to share my experiences, and to actually teach other people, well, I think I'll learn a little bit better because I know I'm going to share it. It might mean that I learn a bit wider, a little bit broader. I might actually learn a little bit deeper, right? Instead of learning just the basic, I'll go into a little bit more about a given subject. That's the first thing. The second thing is we just want to have some fun. And we have Basset Hounds. We have another channel actually of that called Bailey's Basset Hounds. You can definitely look that up. And there's some humorous videos. Anytime if you know anything about Basset Hounds, they can be hilarious. We sometimes call them bass holes. But we want to share some of that. And just our other gardening adventures. It's a crazy journey. And there's going to be successes, there's going to be failures. But we want to share that in a humorous way. I am left-handed. My right eye kind of wanders, as I mentioned, and I'm a dad of 5 daughters. So I'm kind of quirky in a mode myself. So humor, that's going to be a big one. I think the other piece that I want to do here is provide some education. And when I say education, I'm not an expert on gardening. There are some things I am an expert on, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in just a few minutes. But I'm not an expert at gardening. I'm learning. But education can be different things. I can show you perhaps how to make compost in a year from now after I've done it more. That's one of the areas that I really want to focus on. For whatever reason, I love the dirt and the soil and the compost in my hands. It feels good. I love the sun on my back in those early spring and late fall days when it's just kind of hitting you just right. But that's what I want to do. I want to give experience, but also some education. One of the things we'll talk about is how to use some of the vegetables, how to use some of the herbs. It's going to be on things that you wouldn't expect. I'm going to hold off on that one for just a minute. We also want to do some product reviews, whether it's clothing, whether it's maybe some shoes, whether it's some of the tools that we use in our garden. Things can be simple. But here's the last one of these, what we want to do in this video. Let me paraphrase that by saying that gardening is analogous to life, or analogous to life. Hopefully I'm saying that word right. I'm more of a math guy than I am a grammar type person, so hopefully I'm saying that word. But gardening is used as analogies or as parables or as other ways of explaining more complex things to people. We all have heard what you reap, you sow, right? Well, excuse me, what you sow, you reap. Guess I better at least get it backwards or correctly, right? With that, it makes sense. You plant a seed, you make sure you fertilize, you make sure you weed it, and then you harvest. Pretty simple, 4 basic steps. And to a large extent, that's what gardening is. But gardening is, again, it's analogous to life. We raise our children. Again, we have 5 daughters, we have 2 son-in-laws and a grandson. And as we talk about raising our children, what do? Well, we have them. That's the seed, as it were. And then we fertilize them. That fertilizing is training them. It's loving them. It's giving them a home, right? It's making sure that the bed that they're being raised in, that raised bed, for example, has the right kind of soil. That kind of soil, well, that's our home environment, because that's the basic foundation of all of this, right? In this case would be our home. And then we hope, as we raise them and fertilize and weed sometimes means we got to get on their case a little bit. We have to discipline. They get in trouble, but they make mistakes, hopefully, and they all will, because we all do, and they learn from them, and then they get better, and they don't make the same mistake again and again and again. That's kind of pulling the weeds. And sometimes for our kids, we have to help do that, right? And then there's the harvest. Well, what's the harvest with our children? It's their successes in life. It's their ability to go from being a dependent child to an independent person to being able to help others and becoming interdependent. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People there, in fact. But that's, again, it's life. Gardening is life. And that's one of the things I'm so excited to share, because with those analogies means that I don't just have to talk about vegetables and fruits and herbs and orchards, or even our horses and our dogs. I get to talk about music, because you know what? There's all kinds of music, country especially, that talks about gardening. There is art. Some of the most famous things have art, or art pictures, art portraits, paintings, have gardening as part of that. We'll show some of that. I get to talk about planning and being organized. We definitely do that in our gardening, right? We plan when we plant. We don't just run out there and start throwing out seeds. We plan for it. And I'm actually a project manager, a process engineer, and I've been in IT a long time as well. And those all make sense to me. It's, in a way, it's a puzzle. So we get to talk about that. We are going to actually have a set of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People posts or videos where I'm going to go through it, because I am an expert in that way. And so I want to share that information. And that actually goes to gardening, because another place that gardening is very close to is personal development. Making me, making my wife better people, better communicators, more successful. And when we say successful, that doesn't mean we don't have failures. And we're not, and success doesn't mean money. We want a good harvest when we grow something. That's at least part of one of the reasons. It's just not all. It's the development. It's the learning again, as I mentioned. So I'm looking forward to sharing all of that. Okay, with that all said, that's all the introduction. Let me ask you a question, and in the comments down below, please put these things in. To you, when someone says they have a garden, what do you think of? Is it the typical basic vegetable garden, maybe tilled into the ground in their backyard, or if they have something of that nature where they're growing tomatoes and they're growing watermelon and squash, lettuces and all those? Maybe it's a fruit orchard. You might think of that with apple trees and peach trees and various types of there. It could be something totally different. It could be a rock garden. I'm 56, just turned 56 yesterday actually, but I'm 56 years old, and one of the things I remember as a kid are the pet rocks. They came in a little box, and it was just a rock, and it was almost like Beanie Babies. They sold like crazy when I was a kid, and this is before all the social marketing that they can do and things like that now. I don't know how many people planted that rock and hoped it would grow. I don't think it did because, again, it's not organic, right? So it's not alive. But people have rock gardens. There are gardens that are culturally specific. Asian gardens like Chinese or Japanese with bonsai trees or various things. There are indoor. I have a plant right behind me. There are indoor gardens. There are small gardens. There are very large gardens. I grew up in North Carolina, and my parents, we had about 2 different 1-acre gardens in a little town called Wendell, North Carolina, just outside of Raleigh. And I remember as a kid working in those, and that was a lot of fun. My grandfather, my mom's dad, also had a garden. And I remember watching his, not just with vegetables, but he had flowers kind of intertwined with those. And he had a greenhouse. And I remember going into his greenhouse and smelling, the earth, as it were, the soil, the humidity, because this was in North Carolina. It got pretty hot and humid. And it was this wonderful smell. It's not a decay smell. It's a clean, earthy, wonderful smell. It brings back great memories. But that's another type of garden, a flower garden. Maybe you combine your gardens so you have an herb and a vegetable and some fruit bushes or fruit trees. Maybe even have that rock garden. Maybe you have a meditation garden. I'm not sure exactly what that would entail, but it's probably an area that's quiet where you can go into, maybe in your backyard, and you can sit there and you can be calm and you can relax and you can think or not think in some cases. Maybe there's a water feature because you can have a water garden. So when people think of gardens, don't think just of the typical, I've got a vegetable garden, here's what it is. A garden can be anything you want it to be. If you live in Manhattan and you're in an apartment complex and you have a little deck, you can still have a little garden. You can do a couple pots, either like the 5-gallon food containers. You actually want to make sure it's a food container and one that's food certified, so there's no chemicals in it that shouldn't be. You don't want those coming into your soil or into your plants. But you can have that. You could have some kind of a raised thing where they stack upon each other and you could grow something. It might be small, but you can still have that garden. Maybe you actually do have 10 acres. And as a matter of fact, not only that, maybe your garden becomes more of a farm or a ranch or a homestead. For my wife and I, we probably going to be moving in the next 6 to 8 months or so from where we are here in just north of Salt Lake City to a little bit further north, like the Cache Valley, or even further than that, up to Southeast Idaho. And for that, if you want to look where that is, just watch Napoleon Dynamite, and that'll show you. I also apologize that my light just went off, so now I'm probably a little bit darker and you're seeing more behind me than me, but that's all right. This is all a test. So that's another piece. What is it when you think gardening? What is it that you would want out of a garden yourself? We're going to talk about that in the next episode, actually, of why I garden, why you may want to garden. And I have almost 20 reasons for that. Some are primary, some are secondary, and some of those that are probably secondary are going to surprise you. Matter of fact, some of the ones that are primary may surprise you too, but that's all right. Your garden is your journey. It's what you want out of it, what you want to put into it. Same for us. Well, thanks for joining. This, again, it's our first video for OGA, our gardening adventure. Please subscribe to the channel. If you like it, please give us the thumbs up. Let us know in the comments if you have any questions, anything you would like to see. We hope that you enjoy this. We're excited to be teachers, but we're also excited to learn and to grow and to not only share our experiences, but to hear your experiences. And as part of that, we're going to be subscribing to other channels. I already do that with several folks. Gardner Scott, phenomenal, great teacher, very articulate. He's an expert by far on so many things of gardening, and he's a great teacher in the way he delivers that. I also like Mark, Self-Sufficient Me. He's down in Australia, and he again, very strong knowledge, but he also brings a lot of humor with just how he does things. But both Gardner Scott and Self-Sufficient Me, they bring enthusiasm. They bring excitement. They bring passion to this. And I think that's a piece of this, is we garden because we love to garden. And and you're going to hear me say in the next video, it's in my blood. It's part of what I do. It's part of a life. Again, thank you. We appreciate you watching, and happy gardening. Bye-bye.